So, the translations are out for My Hero Academia Manga chapter 386, and let's just say that this is probably going to be both a very amazing yet controversial chapter, and you'll see why that is the case. But first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to cover the translation and the chapter for My Hero Academia Manga chapter 386, titled, I Am Here. And if that title didn't give it away, this is going to be not really, but sorta kinda an All Might Center chapter, and you'll get to see why that's the case when I do my review of it. But let me just say that this chapter is very amazing in what it's doing for the series as a whole. Whether or not it's for the better or for the worse, it's for you to decide, but I'm going to put in my 2 cents on what I think this chapter means for the story as a whole, because there's a lot that really needs to go into it, and I may not be able to get into the smaller details of what this chapter really means for the story, but I will try my best to condense it as much as possible for you to understand. So you know what? Let's just dive right into the review and explain to you what I'm talking about when it comes to why this chapter is a little bit controversial. But before we get to that, let's talk about the first part of this chapter, which is pretty much the explanation of what's going on with Dabi and why the people on the hero side are so, well, should I put this, screwed. So, for starters, let's talk a little bit more about the first part of this chapter, which is actually not revolving around All for One, but the despair that the people are feeling when it comes to Dabi. Because you have Tsukachi and the police officers who are monitoring the entire situation when they realize that something horrible is happening with Dabi, and not necessarily something that involves like, oh no, Dabi is destroying Endeavor or Endeavor is defeated, but that the people and the officers realize that Dabi has basically turned into a nuclear weapon. And no, I'm not joking about that. Like, he actually turns into a literal bomb. Because we get the explanation that because Dabi has been storing so much heat inside of his body that once his body ceases to function, which is around 10 minutes, then the heat inside of his body would be so much and will be released with so much force that it will literally cremate anything within 5 kilometers or 3.1 miles. And it so happens that the evacuation of the citizens are going underneath Gunga Mountain, and that if it's 3.1 miles or 5 kilometers, that may be the radius of that attack. From the center of the explosion, which would be Dabi, 5 kilometers down, 5 kilometers up, and 10 kilometers wide. That is a lot of damage and may even be more devastating than any bomb or nuclear weapon that was dropped on Japan prior to this. And you may be wondering, oh wow, this is very convenient. How could they have run this entire channel of evacuation on Gunga Mountain where they knew that the battle was going to occur? Well, here's the thing. A, they would not have known that the battle was going to occur when they were building this evacuation device, because it was being built around the time of the cultural festival and way before the actual first war actually started. And second of all, even if they knew that the battle was actually going to be going on Gunga Mountain, even if All for One was in the area, there's no way that they could have created a secondary or alternative route in time within the span of the month that the UA barrier and these evacuation shuttles were perfected. So yeah, this was an unexpected yet convenient but unavoidable fact that was going to happen. And at this moment, there is no one that can really stop Dabi except for 2 people. And that is where we're getting more into the second half of this chapter, which gets more into the controversial aspect. But before we reach that controversy, let's talk a little bit more about the secondary characters of this chapter, both Ida and Shoto. Because in this moment, Ida is trying his best to comfort Shoto, who is most likely going through a whole bunch of mental stress in this moment. He had to fight his brother Toya, and he failed. He tried to go after Toya, and he failed. He needs to now go after All for One, but he can't do that because, you know, his phosphor has really drained him. And how Ida is looking at the situation and realize, oh my gosh, you're carrying all of this burden and you're a kind-hearted soul. I'm so sorry for you. So they begin to like wallow in this dread, but then it's revealed that All Might has hacked the communication and is able to talk to both them as well as Tsukachi. And how he pretty much gives like words of comfort and advice to Shoto and Ida, and pretty much tells them that they are the only people that are able to get to Gunga Mountain fast enough to stop Toya. Which is really going to be amazing because that means that the Todoroki conflict is going to be happening with Shoto, Toya, as well as Endeavor. But what was even more impactful about this is that Ida is going to be playing a major role in this war, which many people thought was not going to be the case. Man, people are not the most observant when it comes to the series as a whole, but that's besides the point. What is very great about this moment is just the emotions that we're getting out of these characters and really getting to see how much they've grown and developed throughout the series, even to the point of getting Stain's admiration about the fact that they are being very much altruistic in this moment, which is what the idea of heroes are supposed to be. And that's going to be tying into All Might very soon. But after the words of advice All Might gives to both Shoto and Ida, they prepare themselves for what they need to do. Shoto gets on Ida's back, and Ida, most likely using his reciprocal burst, is able to blast off in the direction of Gunga Mountain Villa. And this is all because of the rain that has cooled his engine, as well as the fact that he is determined to get this lost child where he needs to be. Once again, tying more into the development and growth that Ida has had throughout the entire story. And the fact that he is basically able to fly in this moment is very much a reference to the first war, where someone comments that he is moving as fast as the people that are flying. So yeah, it's very cool that we're getting this moment and really getting to see the Todoroki conflict about to come together in a more or less meaningful moment, hopefully. But now let's get to the controversy of this chapter, because you may be wondering, oh, why is it so important that All Might is here to talk to both Tsukachi as well as Shoto and Ida? Well, that's because All Might is on the front line about to confront All For One with potentially an Iron Man battlesuit. Except for All Might. And All Might knows this, because Tsukachi is very much worried for what's going on with All Might and saying that All Might cannot do this because he's quirkless. However, that doesn't matter to All Might, because All Might has come to a realization that you can still be a hero even if you don't have a quirk. And how he may be the best person suited for this job due to the fact that All For One in this moment has grown stronger, but also more in line with Tomoe Shigaraki when it comes to his personality and emotions and hatred. And that he will be the perfect distraction for All For One, because now with the hatred inside of him, All Might is the person that All For One would hate the most. So this is going to be their final confrontation as the main villain and a main hero. And who's going to come out on top? We don't know, but most likely someone is going to be dying in this fight. And that's where the controversy comes in. I could go into it a little bit more on why I think this is going to be the case in the case that All Might dies. But yeah, I do think that All Might dies, and it just comes to the idea that this is going to be very important to the story of My Hero Academia for completing All Might's story. Because what people may not know is that All Might's story is not about him learning how to live without his quirk, but learning to live without the power of One For All, and coming to terms with the fact that even though he does not have that power anymore, he can still be a hero. And this is just something that we've been seeing not just recently, but throughout the entire story as a whole. All Might struggling with the fact that he is no longer powerful. The belief that because he doesn't have a quirk or power, that he can no longer truly act to help and save people. And that over the course of the story, he's come to a realization that even without his power, he can still be useful to the people around him. But even with that usefulness, he also comes to a realization that what made him a hero was his ideals. And that as long as he still has those ideals, he can still be a hero. And how he said that he would do anything and everything to continue to fight the good fight alongside his fellow students as well as heroes. Which is why the end of the chapter pretty much ends with All Might's most iconic line, "I am here," with him about to put on a battlesuit to fight against All For One. By the way, battlesuits, even though maybe not to the tech that we have in our world, do exist in the world of My Hero Academia. We saw it with Destro, and we even saw it earlier with All Might with a suit that was able to contain him at 30%, but it was just very bulky. As well as, just giant robots that are able to shoot giant F-off missiles, as well as planes that have, as well as just military grade planes that can literally shoot lasers. So All Might having an Iron Man-like suit, if not as compact and sleek as Iron Man, but be as bulky as what we saw with Destro, is not out of the line of possibility within the world of My Hero Academia, and most likely this is a very unique suit of a one in existence that only can be done and used by All Might, or only belongs to All Might, so no other character could have gotten it. But is it going to be powerful to stop All for One? Most likely than not, but will it be powerful enough to potentially put an end to the fighting and the conflict that All for One has with All Might in this moment? I believe so. So I think that what we're going to be getting is a final stand against All for One and All Might, the two characters who have been fighting against each other throughout the time and millennium of this story existing, will now come into conflict one last time, and someone is going to die. Whether or not it's going to be All Might, All for One, or both is really up in the air, but someone is going to die, and this is going to be changing and impact the story in a very meaningful way, hopefully if Horikoshi is able to deliver. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. What did you think of the chapter? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Me personally, I really did enjoy this chapter. I love the stuff that was happening with Ida and Shoto, the reveal that Dabi is a literal bomb, that All for One is being consumed by his hatred, and that All Might is the only character that is able to confront him and stall him enough for him to lose this battle. So what I think is going to be happening within the next chapter, which isn't coming out in another 2 weeks because of Golden Week, unfortunately, but what we're going to be seeing is All Might just going all out. I do not think that All for One is going to one-shot him, but I do not think that All Might is going to do any real damage to All for One. I think it's going to be more of a back and forth where All for One is going to deliver a fatal blow against All Might, but All Might will have bought enough time for him, as well as Deku, as well as the other heroes, to see that All for One is going to be reverted back to nothingness and be unable to get to the location of Tomoe Shigaraki, and therefore it will be All Might's win once again because he accomplished what he was supposed to do, and All for One's failure for not getting to Tomoe Shigaraki in time and allowing for Shigaraki's hatred of Shigaraki to pretty much be his downfall. But hey, that's just my thoughts. What'd you think? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!